Now let's talk to someone who is very close to this developing story. Peter Zalmayev is in Kyiv. He is the director of the Eurasia Democracy Initiative. First of all, Peter, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Thank you. Well, I was woken up about an hour ago with these loud explosions, the sirens going off. I'm smack in the center of the city. The explosions were kind of distant, these loud sonic booms, about a dozen of them. Sirens are going off and lots of sounds of traffic. Obviously, the civilians have started to flee.
And right, so what is the protocol there? I mean, walk us through that. So when you hear explosions and the sonic booms and the sirens, what is it that you and the others in your nearby vicinity began to do?
Well, folks obviously are reacting emotionally to it. It's maybe part of a psychological operation that we warned about all along. But the Ukrainian president spoke just a moment ago, and he said for folks to stay calm and to stay at home. This is probably not the time to flee Kyiv, simply because it might be very difficult to do. The hope is that there will be no strikes on civilian centers. Vladimir Putin, whom you cannot take at his word at all, but at least he said that he's not doing so far. The indications are that he's going after military infrastructure, and other installations throughout the country. There may be an invasion on overland in the area of Odessa and Kherson and even Kharkiv. So far, folks in Kyiv are saying that the explosions are happening around the city. Maybe a military airport may have been hit. There's a concern that when it comes to the center, there may be hits on ministries of defense, ministries of internal affairs, etc.
Right, because on that point, what is the fear in your mind and on your fellow Ukrainians' minds right now that there could be some kind of incursion, some kind of an attack on civilian areas where people live and work?
Well, you have to read, Vladimir Putin, reading him between the lines, obviously, when he said that, we're not going after civilians, we're going to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. And he said that we will bring to justice all those who've been waging kind of a genocide against people in the eastern Ukraine. So he's referring to the current government, maybe the previous government, members of parliament. That may mean that he's going to try to actually reach them, and the only way to reach them is by land. So that's a concern. And finally, a very ominous note to all who might want to defend Ukraine. He's appealing to the West to stand down. It sounds to me like a hint at a nuclear blackmail. He's hinted at nuclear blackmail in years past. He's provided this image of a cornered rat, likening himself essentially to a cornered rat. He says when the rat has been cornered, it will strike. And I think this is what we're hearing from him. Should you try to intervene, we're going to hit you with something you couldn't have imagined. Right. I think this is nuclear blackmail we're talking about.
Because what would be your appeal at this point of time to the international community, to anyone watching this situation unfold from the outside in?
This is not the time to back down. This is not the time to go all out with sanctions and hit them really, really hard. I think Johnson has already commented, and it seems like the Western leaders are trying to get their act together. It's just also what we're seeing is the results of this complacent policy towards Vladimir Putin. We saw this first escalation, if you remember, in the spring, and there was no response to that. All along, there were these steps that the West could have and should have taken to address each Russian provocation. It hasn't been done, and now you were paying a full price for that.
And so just as we have about 30 seconds left, what is it that you are prepared or even able to do at this point? I mean, you've had the advice to stay at home, not to flee. What is going through your mind as you think about what your moves are over the next few hours and the next few days?
Yes, well, obviously you cannot rule out that this may be my last internet connection. The phones are also already working sporadically, so just trying to stay in touch with friends. Having their physical addresses, so you can actually coordinate go to their places directly. But I'm staying right here. I'm staying right now in Kyiv. There's no other way. There's no way to fly out anymore. So just hoping and praying and staying calm. That's the only way you can do it.
Peter Zalmayev, you are remarkably calm in this moment. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and I hope you are able to stay safe.